Hello everybody, welcome back. After the first 2 weeks in November were quite quiet in the wood, I was expecting to put weeks 3 and 4 together as one video. But as it turned out, weeks 3 and 4 have been really busy, so I've separated week 3 into its own video, and this is the introduction to week 4, which is the final one for November. Been lots going on, and a surprise visit after several months by a mouse. We had mice, I think it was in April this year, and then all of a sudden they disappeared virtually overnight. I have a feeling maybe the fox was responsible for that. But just a few days ago, the Trailcam caught mice again coming to eat some of the bird seed. So it's been quite nice to see those scurrying about. Other activity, the fox has been really busy. The hedgehog's still out and about. The rabbit's also a frequent visitor. And there's been lots of birds as well. So I hope you enjoy this little week's review to finish off the month of November. The week began on the 22nd. There was quite a lot of bird activity around the pond and feeders. It was still dark enough at that time for the camera to be recording in infrared mode. By almost 8:30, the camera had switched to starlight mode, giving a colour but low resolution capture of the pigeon expecting to be fed. "10 minutes later, the collared dove had arrived and was searching for seed on the woodland floor and the bird table. Around the same time, the female blackbird was having a dip in the pond. The water level was a bit low at this point, as I normally top it up with rainwater soon after 9 o'clock when I go out to check the camera. Just before 9 a.m, the male blackbird was in the pond, while the pigeon was still expecting breakfast. Shortly after, a female blackbird was back at the pond. Half an hour later, the rabbit was on its way through the wood, probably to sit and eat the dandelions on the lawn. At 10:30, I went out to set up the bird table camera, and while out, caught a bluetit by the pond on my phone. While they seemed quite nervous, I was only standing about 6 feet away. Shortly after that, I caught a robin at the bird table. I hadn't yet started the bird table camera recording. The seed on the table attracted the pigeons around 1 in the afternoon. They were the only birds caught at the table, as many as the small birds fly in and out too fast for the motion detection to trigger the recording. At 20 minutes to midnight, the hedgehog appeared on the camera, searching around the base of the tree. It eats lots of the spilled seed from the bird table. It was captured 10 minutes later near the pond, heading in the direction of the lawn. A few minutes into the 23rd, the fox appeared, seemingly able to smell the birdseed on the table. Just 10 minutes later, the hedgehog was back again for another search around the tree. I've seen slugs caught on camera, so I'm guessing the hedgehog searches the woodland floor for slugs. It does wander around, seemingly aimlessly, covering the same areas over and over, but must be following its nose. By morning, the pigeons were back at the table, looking to finish off the seed from the day before. When I went out that morning, I had camera 3 overlooking the pond, and camera 2 looking at the hanging bird feeder. The robin was the first pond visitor, while a great tit landed unfortunately on the back of the feeder. The robin then chased another great tit off the bird table. Back at the pond, a little black streak zoomed through the frame, which turned out to be a bee, still out in late November. The blue tit, robin, and great tit were the next to the pond before a collared dove arrived. This didn't keep the blue and great tits away, with the blue tit making the most of the freshly filled water. By 4:15 in the afternoon, the light levels had dropped enough for the infrared camera to catch the robin having a dip at the pond. Then at 10 to 8, after many months of absence, the camera picked up a field mouse scurrying across the woodland floor. Its sprinting speed is impressive as it darted up and down the wood, stopping to fill up on some of the birdseed by the pond. All was quiet until 2:35 on the morning of the 24th, when the hedgehog made another appearance by the pond. I'm surprised to see the hog still out looking for food in the last week of November. It ate some of the birdseed on its travels, as it made multiple laps of the wood searching among the leaves. In all, the hedgehog hung around for around about 10 minutes, being captured several times on the camera, though not all are included here. Each capture is a minute long, and for the month the cameras captured almost 3 hours of video. There were no other captures after the hedgehog until that evening when the fox showed up just before 10 p.m. Like the hedgehog, the fox had a good explore around the wood, being caught several times on the camera. All that pacing around must have been tiring, as the fox ended up sitting at the back of the wood for a while. It's nice to know it feels comfortable and safe here. After another snack on birdseed, the fox left. Half an hour later, Chevron the cat turned up. He could smell that there'd been food around. Another 30 minutes after that, at 11:16, Chevron was back again, sniffing around the same spot. He left the wood via the middle pathway towards the lawn. 18 minutes into the 25th, the fox returned. I don't know if finding food is difficult right now, but it spent some time eating 2 piles of birdseed. After about 6 minutes, the fox moved off again. At 1:10, the hedgehog was back once more, wandering around the shrubs and trees. Just a few minutes later, the very fluffy cat showed up. He could either smell that there'd been food there, or could smell Chevron. After a while wandering around the wood, it ended up sitting on a pile of birdseed until something else caught its attention. It returned again for one more pass by the pond before heading out to the bottom of the wood. Almost an hour later, the fox was back, after more birdseed. Perhaps it is off hunting, and if all else fails, it comes back for birdseed. The hedgehog and fox came back again, around 3 and 4 a.m. respectively. I sped up the video as they were in frame so long. The next capture was a blackbird around 7:30 in the morning. I thought it was going for the pond, but it didn't. It was probably the same one that was back at 10 to 8, with the camera in starlight mode, giving a bit of colour. Just a few minutes later, with the camera in full daylight mode, it caught the rabbit having a stretch, and then moving on to dandelion control on the lawn. 15 minutes after that, the pigeon was by the pond, after the leftover seed. Shortly after that, the robin appeared. The camera shut off at 9 a.m, but early that evening spotted the mouse again. It made a number of visits over the next hour, stopping for seed each time before scurrying off again. The last visit was just before 7:30 p.m. 2.5 hours passed before the camera triggered again with a fox. It was having a good sniff around and could probably smell the mouse. That was it for the 25th, until the fox returned at 2 a.m. on the 26th. It ignored the seed and this time must have been on a mouse hunt. No more action until 7:22, when the blackbird returned for breakfast and a bath. It was seen several times in the dawn light as other birds began racing around the wood. At 7:46, the rabbit was by the tree, while a dunnock had a drink by the pond. The robin and blackbird dropped in too. The rabbit left the pond heading towards the farm fields, and all was quiet again until the pigeon turned up at 9:40, sharing the space with the female blackbird. The next action from the camera was at 8:30 that evening, when the fox came back. All was quiet again until 1:10 on the 27th, with the return of the hedgehog. It hung around in the wood for about 15 minutes, and was the last capture of the night. The blackbird was late for its morning dip, arriving at 8:36, almost an hour after the day before. I tried setting the camera to be active for an hour from noon to see if anything interesting appeared during the day. The first capture was just the pigeon at 12:10, which I'm sure just spends all day in various parts of the wood. 2 of the collared doves were seen at 18 minutes past 12, and again at 12:30 by the pond. That was all that was seen. At 11:30 that evening, Chevron the cat stopped by briefly. It was 2:14 on the 28th before the next visitor, which was the hedgehog. It was quite breezy, with the camera having quite a bit of sway to it due to the flexibility of the conifer that it was attached to. The hedgehog was around for a couple of minutes. There was then nothing for the rest of the night, and the next visitor was the other black and white cat a little after 9 p.m. that evening. Only 10 minutes after the cat, the fox came by, taking some of the apples that I've left out in addition to the birdseed. I think there's a problem with the battery backup in the solar panel, as it wasn't powering the camera and the internal batteries were dropping to 5% capacity under load, causing flickering of the image. The fox made several trips, including for birdseed, and frequently went to the back of the wood to sit down and eat. The fox was back once more at 2:30 on the 29th. This time it wasn't the birdseed he was after, and it wasn't the apples either. It was the peanuts. I find it odd that other than the seed, the fox will usually pick up the food and carry it to the back of the wood to eat. Perhaps sitting on the leaves is more comfy. After about half an hour, the hedgehog made a visit. In June and July, I'd be lucky to catch the hedgehog once a week. He must be going all out to fatten up for hibernation. The visit lasted around about 5 minutes. Just a few minutes after the hog left, the fox arrived. That was another birdseed and peanut trip, lying down at the back of the wood again to eat the peanut. The camera was really struggling with the low battery voltage. The AA dry cells had only been in for a week, where they usually last a month or more. I've since bought some rechargeables for the camera. The last fox clip has him fighting with half an apple at 3:30 in the morning. Just 3 minutes later, the camera picked up the hedgehog in the darkness to the right of the tree. I'm surprised the camera was triggered with the hog right on the edge of the field of view, emerging from behind the tree. What I didn't spot straight away was the fox curled up on the far left of the frame having a rest. It wasn't until I saw his ears twitching that I noticed him. It was more obvious in the next hog capture when the fox sat up. A minute later, I got a better view with the hog beside the pond, heading out of the wood towards the lawn. The male blackbird was out in the dawnlight just before 8 a.m. and was briefly visited by a bluetit and robin. "13 hours later, the mouse activated the camera just after 9 p.m. that evening. He was clearing up the seed scattered by the birds and fox. Almost 2 hours after that, the hog was back with a bit of an itch that needed a scratch. Once again, he spent quite some time searching around the wooden floor and ended up being there about 10 minutes in total. At 2:11 on the morning of the 30th, the mouse was back clearing up seed. When checking the videos on my phone after downloading them from the camera, it's easy to miss small animals, so I always check through each video on the laptop to see if there's anything small or hidden in the background. About 12 minutes later, the fox was back, and I'm sure I could smell the mouse again. 7:28, the blackbird was back in the pre-dawn light, checking out one of the apples. Not far away, the robin was watching the blackbird. And a dunnock was pecking at another apple on the far side of the pond. That was it until the evening, when the hedgehog came back for the last capture of November, and he still hasn't gone into hibernation. I'm considering a hedgehog house at some point in the future, but it will probably be placed off camera in a quieter part of the wood. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you like YouTube Shorts, check out the Pinetree Wood Shorts channel, and stick here the Pinetree Wood Trailcam for the long form videos. See you next time.